overall, what is the actual expectations for the St. Louis Blues season? And is it anything that I said this summer, or am I completely wrong? This is all coming up here on Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host, Haley Taylor Simon here, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. What did I just say, and is it actually accurate? All right, before you get into a panic, what I am saying is this. All summer, I have been optimistic about the St. Louis Blues and their upcoming season. But what if I'm wrong? What if my optimism was really just me being in denial about how this team is truly going to perform? So I will be getting into that. Also, is it a lack of chemistry or a lack of effort? When breaking down last season, I take a closer glimpse as to what went wrong. And as I said, maybe I was wrong about something. And then, of course, my favorite summer segment that's going to be coming to an end very shortly is Blues History Minute of the Day. Before I get into today's episode, with everything going on, I want to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or enter promo code LockedOnNHL for a free water bottle with any order. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. My overall season prediction is this, and it's not going to be as optimistic. It's not going to be as positive as it once was. I have been a very positive person all season. Well, all off season. I have said, if the Blues perform well, they have a shot of getting maybe a spot in the playoffs, being a wild card team. Or I said that this will be a year that there's going to be a lot of improvement, and maybe last season was fluky. But lately, I've been getting this feeling that I could be wrong. Maybe my optimism was just the fan in me, was just me trying to be positive because I want the Blues to be successful. My biggest concern is that this team stays the same. And sure, maybe they get a couple more wins. Maybe there is improvement going on. But can that much really change with the addition of one player and getting Kevin Hayes? Is this team going to be so much better that all of a sudden, because of Kevin Hayes, they make it to the postseason? When looking back at Kevin Hayes and his impact on the New York Rangers and the Philadelphia Flyers, I did see some improvements within the teams when he was on the ice, right? I saw things that he did that were good, but it doesn't make me feel better knowing that he was on a Philadelphia team that has had some of its worst seasons in history. And when he was on the Rangers, it's not like he stood out that much. And while I am excited about him being on the St. Louis Blues, don't get me wrong, because I do think that he is 100% more beneficial than he is detrimental. I don't see him turning around the St. Louis Blues. And sure, call me negative, but I feel like that's just me being super realistic and honest with not only myself, but with you. Because this is my thing. I don't want you going into the season gaining all of my optimism and saying, Haley from Locked On Blues said that the Blues might be so much better because of a fluky season. And while that could be a possibility, the same possibility that the St. Louis Blues just kind of stayed the same is also huge. I don't think they're going to be worse, and it's really hard to be worse, okay? They do have talent. They have a great goalie and Jordan Binnington, who I will always praise. I love Robert Thomas, and he brings so much with all of his assists and playmaking. They have, Braden Shen, who I'm a huge fan of, as we know. But what the Blues lack in everything that I was just saying is a super, super strong defender. And while the offense is good, It's not great. It's not bad. It's good. It's okay. The defense is just okay. And this kind of goes into the bigger factor overall that it might be a high scoring season for St. Louis, but it also could be high scoring for the other teams against the Blues. I just don't know if I feel confident in saying that the Blues are going to be significantly better. While I still think the season had some flukes to it, it wasn't a season that I'm going to look back on and say, yeah, this made sense, because it didn't. But, you lost Ryan O'Reilly. You lost your captain. And when you don't have the leadership, that could also play a factor. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. Unfortunately, I don't hear the conversations that go on between the players. I don't know what they're thinking. But just looking at the ice, watching them play hockey, it's not enjoyable. And I want this season to at least be enjoyable. And it seems like the organization, for a fan's perspective, is going to do everything they can to make this enjoyable. But if the hockey isn't good, then the game atmosphere, it could be nice, but it's not going to be, oh my gosh, I'm having so much fun watching my team lose again. I am cautiously optimistic. I still think the Blues are going to win over 40 games this season. I think they're going to finish roughly the same that they did in the Central, that they did last season. I can't put them above the Predators. I can't put them above the Jets. There are certain teams that I cannot put them above. Do I think they're going to be better than the Coyotes? Yes. Do I think they're going to be better than the Blackhawks? Hopefully, yes. I mean, the elephant in the room is Connor Bedard, and he is a stud, but we haven't seen him play in the NHL, right? So who knows? I mean, they're predicting for him to be an absolute stud on the ice. But until I see it, I'm just going to be in a little bit of denial and say, it may not work out, even though it probably will, because it always works out for the Blackhawks, unfortunately. Like, if I hear the dagger one more time, I'm going to lose my mind. But I will be talking to my friends from Locked on Blackhawks, and we will be doing an episode together at some point soon, just because I want to talk to them, since we're Central Division coexisting acquaintances. I don't know. They're very nice. I just don't like the Blackhawks, and they have our boy Darren Panger, so a little upset about that one on a little bit of a petty side. But I think my point is this. If the Blues, hear me out, if they end up having roughly the same type of season that they had last season, does that mean that Berube will be gone? Does that mean that Army's going to have to make some decisions that are not going to be well liked by the fans? Maybe clean house. I don't know. I don't have the answers. But I am just saying that this is a do or die season for the St. Louis Blues. And I hate to be this way. I hate to be this, oh my gosh, Shaylee's in panic mode. Of course I am. I don't want to see my team struggle for another season when they don't have to. While the Blues have a tight cap space situation, they could have still made moves this offseason that could have loosened up the cap space a little bit and acquired a solid defender. But instead, okay, Torrey Krug doesn't want to move. That is his right, and he does not have to. When you have a no trade clause, you are allowed legally and willingly to not move and go to a team that you don't want to go to. So that is not on Torrey Krug, but it is on the management of the St. Louis Blues for not looking at other players to move them. I am not saying by any means that I am going to blame Torrey Krug for the Blues' upcoming season. I am not. As long as he puts in his effort this season, I will be fine. But it is on the higher-ups for not doing something despite the fact that he wasn't going to move. Find another solution. Make another trade. Because at the end of the day, you were only hurting yourself. In this big blockbuster trade that every single person had their eyes on ended up being the biggest joke of this offseason. The biggest joke of this offseason. And I'm not saying that lightly. I am saying that as an annoyed St. Louis Blues fan. This ended up being the biggest joke of the entire offseason because the St. Louis Blues couldn't figure out a way to move their players to get better defenders, better scorers by any means. But hey, Kevin Hayes, it's ridiculous. There was an opportunity where there's a really struggling organization within the Philadelphia Flyers that were willing to work with you. And you didn't do anything. Instead, you took a player, but you didn't get rid of anybody. And the cap space is still the same bleeping situation. I got mad. All right. Well, you know what doesn't make me mad? Oh, man. Wow. That was actually kind of funny. Okay. Bird dogs make you look good. Bird dogs are stretch khaki short, and they're designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg to give you a truly sculptured look. Listen, I love when I see guys wearing their bird dogs. It always makes them look good, and I am just like, okay, go off. I see it at the gym, and I'm like, yo, are you wearing your bird dogs? And they're always like, yeah, how did you know? And I'm like, well, I talk about them all the time. And me, myself, like, yeah, like I'll wear it to bed. Like, I'm not going to lie. They're also anti-stink and sweat. So that means that their fabric will have you cool all day long, which is a huge one because when it's hot and muggy and gross, like you don't want to sweat. But it happens, but bird dogs make it so you don't smell disgusting, which is actually a really good thing. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or enter promo code LockedOnNHL at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you. And honestly, you won't. When you see like how amazing this material is, you're going to be like, okay, Haley told us, and she was right about that. I'm just saying. So go check out Bird Dogs. Okay, I feel better now. Now that I talked about bird dogs, we're good. I'm not yelling into my computer anymore. I'm feeling better, but I might yell again because is it a lack of chemistry or a lack of effort by the St. Louis Blues? Hale, come on. What do you mean by okay, I'll tell you. So I was watching a documentary from when the Blues won the Stanley Cup. And it was a fabulous documentary, and it really showed me one thing, and that was how much chemistry that team had. I don't see that within this team. And I hate to be that way. And I know that's not fair to these players since they're not a Stanley Cup kind of contending team, but neither was that team in 2018, 2019. But the difference I saw with that team was that they were having fun, and they were just not only killing it on the ice, but they were just having fun with each other off the ice. And I feel like chemistry does play a big role into hockey. It is obviously a team sport, but it's a sport where you do need a lot of trust. You need to trust in so many things. You need to trust that if you're Jordan Binnington, you need to trust that your defenders are going to protect you. If you're the offense, you're going to have to trust that your line partners are going to pass you the puck if it's a little bit of a backhand. What I'm getting at is this. Trust is a huge part of hockey. And if you don't have that trust, you're not going to be successful. A little secret. So could you work on building that trust? Yes. Does that take effort? Yes. So is it a lack of trust, a lack of effort, or is it both? And I think it is both. It takes effort to build trust. Maybe what these guys need to do, I did see them golfing the other day. The NHL did post that, so I was happy to see that. But they need to do more bonding activities. Maybe they have. And I hate to say that, let's go around the room and do trust falls. I am not saying that. But what I am saying is that they need to learn how to trust each other more on the ice and have fun with it. If you're going to always be so serious and tense, it's going to just be sloppy. But if you're able to loosen up a little bit, have trust, know what you're doing, it's going to show. And I think that's what made that team back in 2008, 2019 so special. And while watching that documentary, I just saw goofballs who trusted each other, essentially. And of course, you need to be serious and this is a job, right? I'm not denying that. But notice how every single team that wins a championship has this level of goofiness. I mean, look at the Vegas Golden Knights and how William Karlsson was during the parade with him knocking over and all the guys laughing. It is because at the end of the day, they genuinely really enjoy each other's company. And that showed on the ice with how much they were able to score, with how resilient they were. And you just look at all these teams. I hate this team, but the Boston Bruins, who we beat in the Cup back in 2018-2019 season, despite them having a really bad postseason, even when Berg was making his final wave saluting the crowd, and you see Marshy crying, that's not a moment of weakness. It is a moment of respect that he had for his captain. The point I am getting at is you look at teams around the NHL that are successful. The Florida Panthers, they went to the Stanley Cup Finals. They were underdogs in this, but they were having fun. Matthew Tkachuk was out on the ice, just having the time of his life. So my whole entire rant on this is this. If you don't have that trust and you don't have that team chemistry, you're not going to be successful. Okay, you could be successful, but it's a little bit of a pattern I've noticed that the more chemistry these guys have with each other, the more successful they are. And obviously when you're winning, you're going to be having fun. That just comes hand in hand. But it's an interesting concept that I was thinking about, and not something that I really put together until recently. So just a little food for thought on that one. I think it's just so interesting, though, how everything just goes hand in hand. And this is why hockey is the love of my life, because it is always so intriguing. All right. A little bit of a Blues history minute today. But first off, I just want to say to you all, I love doing the Locked On Predators, Locked On Blues crossover episode last Friday. Anne is awesome. And I love being able to talk hockey. And we did talk about the Shen brothers and how they're now in the same division once again. So that will be fun to see Luke and Braden Shen this season. Also, make sure you follow on Twitter at Locked On Blues or my Twitter, Haley T. Simon. And of course, if you are on YouTube and you get to see my face, hello, how are you? Make sure you subscribe, leave comments down below because I do want to hear your thoughts. And on my last video that I did with Anne, someone said Braden Shen is definitely the better brother. And I agree. So the battle of the brothers. But that is just what I want to tell you. Also, if you're listening on any kind of streaming service, whether it be Spotify, Apple Music, Sirius, wherever you get your podcast, definitely make sure you give it a follow and you continue to listen to Locked On Blues, because this season, tons of interviews, tons of content that you won't want to miss out on for your daily St. Louis Blues information and news. So I'm just saying, a little shameless self-promo on that one. But for the Blues History Minute, and this is from September 3rd, 1968. So it was 55 years ago. And again, this is all from STL Blues History, one of my favorite Twitter pages that helps me find some of the coolest and most unique information out there. Best transition in St. Louis Blues franchise history took place. St. Louis Blues hired Dan Kelly as play-by-play man. So that is super, super, super cool. And they showed newspaper clippings of the one and the great Dan Kelly. So a little fun on that one. So also, this is where my favorite time of hockey season is about to come. It is September 6th. Yes, we made it to September. And despite what anybody says, September is still summer, okay? I just want to get that out of the way. It is not summer until the 21st, which is then fall. But here we go. It is almost hockey season. There's going to be games, hockey this month. Okay, preseason. It's still freaking hockey, okay? 36 days until the NHL regular season kicks off. Well, not kicks off, shoots off. Get it? Because the puck's I'm just so excited. So I hope you were just as excited as well. I love me some hockey. Hockey is the love of my life. And I'm yes, we're almost there. So I am just so ecstatic. In July, I was okay, let's get to August. And then in August, I'm okay, let's get to September. And oh my guys, it's almost happening. A little update for the podcast, though. So let me go look at the dates. So right now, it is September 6th. It is Wednesday, September 6th. And for the podcast, I have been doing episodes on Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. Not next week, but the week after, we'll be back into regular mode, which means 5 episodes per week since the season will be about to begin. So what does this mean for you? It means 5 episodes a week. In the off season, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to find things. I mean, I found things, obviously, but sometimes it is a little bit more challenging. So that's why the Locked On Podcast Network does this. But I just want to reassure you, and I will, of course, remind you next week to make sure that you're listening again on Mondays and Tuesdays. And the reason why I've been doing Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, honestly, there's more news that comes out in the back end of the weeks. That's just what I've noticed working in sports for as long as I have. So evidently, it just kind of worked out that way. Football season begins tomorrow, and the Kansas City Chiefs are playing. So I will make sure to put out tomorrow's episode a little bit earlier in the day, since I know a lot of you are going to be same here. I'll be watching the Chiefs and Lions as well. So the episode will go out earlier in the day because of that. So I didn't forget about my NFL fans. So that is today's episode. I had a lot of fun, a lot of ranting, but it needed to be done. And I will see you tomorrow on the first football regular season day, talking St. Louis Blues. All right. I will talk to you guys later. And until then, what do I always say? Let's go Blues.